Hey guys, I wanted to talk about something that I wanted to make a video about. And I feel like it's a good time given what just happened at the Classic. And I guess it's something I've paid attention to for a while, since this Livescope has just got massive. And I feel like it's the new big excuse. If you do bad in a tournament, you say, well, I went shallow and they were out live scoping them, or I tried to get on the live scope bite, but you can't beat it, unless you get on the live scope bite, whatever. And I've just looking at weights is kind of where I'm coming from with this. Looking at weights of tournaments, it doesn't matter, because in a tournament it doesn't matter what everybody else is doing. You can't I guess blame or you can't really blame how bad you did on somebody offshore live scoping them. It still takes 20 pounds a day to win a tournament. Most places. Some days places it takes a lot less than that. But I keep seeing these guys complaining on these lakes that it's always taken 20 pounds a day to win. Before live scope it did, but then they lose against a guy that caught 20 pounds a day, and they say, well, live scope, you can't beat live scope. It's like, no, you just need to catch 20 pounds a day, just like you did 10 years ago, but you didn't catch 20 pounds a day. It's not a reason to complain about that. And why I feel like this is a great time to talk about this is because of what just happened at the Classic and what happened in 2015 at the Classic. And if you don't follow bass fishing closely or anything, the 2015 Bassmaster Classic was won by Casey Ashley offshore on Hartwell. And total for the tournament, he weighed in just over 50 pounds. I was just trying to look it up, and now I still can't remember, but I think it was 50 pounds, 4 ounces over 3 days. And the Classic that was just won by Christie was won with 54 pounds. I think it was right at 54 pounds. Not really a big difference in weights there when you split it up over 4 days. That's like, a pound a day difference. And but the thing is that first thing you'll point out, well, it took more weight to win. Well, Christie wasn't primarily live scoping. Casey Ashley was offshore, and he won offshore before live scope. Fast forward to the era of live scope, where you can't win a tournament apparently. And Hartwell, I will say, is one of the lakes in the country that is a live scope lake. That place, if you don't have live scope, I would feel discouraged fishing a tournament there without live scope. It definitely makes tracking down those offshore bass there a little bit easier, a lot easier. But Casey Ashley managed to win a Classic there without it offshore, and then win live scope. The top 10 should have all been people live scoping, literally the entire top 10, according to any person that loses a tournament nowadays. The entire top 10 should have just been staring at their screens all week, but they weren't. Christie was flipping docks. He did catch a couple fish that he used his live scope on. Now, in 2015 or whatever, before everybody had live scope, could he have caught those fish? Apparently, because Casey Ashley was doing it, and people have done it for years. It still takes the same weight to win a tournament, and whether you can find it on the bank or not. And when you look back, with the technology at hand, people find the fish. A lot of the times I think that live scope hurts people, because like plenty of people have said, and what I do going into a lot of tournaments that I think it's an offshore thing, now that I have it on my boat, I'll spend a day of practice just live scoping, because I'm almost scared. I've bought into the sales pitch too. I'm almost scared to go into the tournament without checking the live scope bite, because all you hear, which the reason, and what I feel like is that I feel like bass fishermen have fallen prey to some very good salesmen and sales tactics, to where all you hear about is the live scope now. And they're trying to sell it to you, obviously. The reason why it's so huge is you know, if everybody was just trying to keep it a secret, you know, you wouldn't necessarily probably feel that way going into a tournament. But every time that a tournament is won with Livescope, or it plays a factor or anything like that, everybody's just like, oh, you know, it's the Livescope deal. But like I said, tournaments were won without Livescope before, with pretty much the same weights. You know, a lot of the major weights that have been caught over time were caught before Livescope ever existed. So this fantasy that if you don't have Livescope, you just don't have a chance in some of these tournaments is, I mean, just completely false. I do think that people spin themselves out for sure not having Livescope. I've seen plenty of people talk about it that don't have it, that they are spun out before the tournament starts because it's like a winter tournament. Lake of the Ozarks, most recently at Toyota Series on Lake of the Ozarks, there are guys talking about it, won't name any names on YouTube, that I feel like were spun out before the tournament ever started because they knew in their head it was going to be won with Livescope. Could it have been won without Livescope? Yeah, I'm positive it could have. But you have a bunch of the field that is looking at their screens Livescope, and if all those people didn't have Livescope and, you know, just fished the way that we fished before Livescope, I think that it still would have probably been won offshore. They just wouldn't have been looking at them. But I mean, you don't have to see a fish on your depth finder to catch it. That's kind of the thing that I feel like people have forgotten. And like I said, I think it's the product of really good salesmen, and I mean, a product that works, but good advertising, and, you know, putting it on people's boats that win tournaments, and inevitably they're going to say, well, these guys won because of that. But I don't know, that's my whole take on the thing. I feel like if you look into weights in tournaments quite a bit, you'll see the same thing, that the weights in tournaments haven't just like skyrocketed whenever I put Livescope on their boat. It wasn't like all of a sudden it took 30 pounds to win every tournament. So I don't understand how people still, I guess, get too worked up about that. I feel like it's almost to the point that it's, now that it's on everybody's boat, it's kind of settled it out. I do feel like that there were a lot of tournaments when there was, like, you know, one guy in the field, if you had Livescope and everybody was fishing offshore, I feel like yeah, that's an advantage. But when the entire field has Livescope and they're all doing the same thing, I feel like it almost pressures those fish more. But I don't know, that's my whole take on the thing. Still takes the same amount of weight to win a tournament. Not a reason to I guess, complain more about it or anything, which I feel like there's a whole lot of people that are using it as their excuse to lose a tournament. But anyway, thanks for watching. Let me know in the comments what you guys feel about the situation. See you guys later.